is on one of the important aspects of this program. And here, when we talk in terms of the role of the teaching, why we carry out teaching, the basic purpose of teaching is to facilitate learning. Because the role of the teacher has changed from being transmitter of information to facilitator of learning. And if we carry out teaching for 1 hour, there ought to be some learning in terms of knowledge, skills, or attitude. Otherwise, we would say that no teaching has taken place. Or in other words, we say, why we do teaching? The primary purpose of teaching is to facilitate learning. And in this particular session, I'm going to focus on two aspects. That is, what is learning? What do we understand by this term learning? And secondly, how people learn. And if we understand these two questions and we are able to answer these two questions, then we'll be able to plan our activities which can facilitate learning among the students. And this particular session, the title of the session is Learning, Varieties of Learning and Principles of Learning and Instruction. Now coming back to the very first thing, the learning. There are many definitions which have been put forth for learning, but I'm only giving you two definitions which I think are very important. And they come from different viewpoints expressed to understand the term learning. And the most acceptable definition is, it is relatively permanent change in potential behavior resulting from experience. Now when we say it's a relatively permanent change, it means learning is something which is retained for quite a long period of time. It is not something which a student forgets and he is not able to even recall or apply. Then we say the learning has taken place. Say for example, I teach you the various parts of the lathe machine, and maybe a weeks later if I ask, can you kindly label the names of the various parts of the lathe machine? And if you're not able to do that, that means no change has taken place. So when we say it is change in behavior, this change persists over a period of time. And it is a change in potential behavior. Now when we say behavior, this is something which is observable. That means the change can take place in the knowledge of a person. That means he may not be able to know certain concepts or principles or theories. And as a result of teaching, maybe some learning of those concepts or theories or principles has taken place, and you are able to increase the cognitive repertoire of that individual. Or the change may be in terms of skills. A person may not be able to do certain activities. Say the person was unable to operate a lathe machine, or he was unable to do the drilling. So after learning, the person is able to operate the lathe, or he is able to drill a hole in the wall. This is outcome of learning. So this is in terms of skill a person acquires. Or this change in behavior can also be in terms of attitude. Attitude towards life, attitude towards education, attitude towards other person, or attitude towards learning also. So when a student comes to us and he undergoes a process, we expect that certain changes will occur in his knowledge, in his skills, and in his attitude. And thus, when we say these changes are result of certain experiences which the individual acquires by interacting with the environment. So interaction with the environment becomes essential to acquire learning. And this experience which the person gets is leading to change in behavior. So very simple definition of learning is a relatively permanent change in potential behavior resulting from experience. And in other words, the interaction with the environment. Guinan in 1977 has defined learning as a change in human disposition or capability which persists over a period of time and which is not simply ascribable to the process of growth. Now, say for example, if we take an example of a small child, the child starts walking, and walking is a learned capability, but we cannot make a child walk unless and until proper growth of muscles have taken place. He cannot stand on his feet when he is 6 months or 7 months, but once he has that strength, muscle strength, only then he can learn to walk. When we say language, language is a learned capability. But a child tries to speak language only at the age of 2 years, or he starts speaking words. That capability is acquired only when he has matured enough to learn the language. So it is not something which is happening within the human being as a result of growth. That is not covered under learning. So strength or physical strength which must be there, or the muscle strength that should be there, or the mind development that should be there to learn certain things, if that is not there, then learning cannot take place. So learning is when the person has the proper physical and mental growth, then he learns the language or the culture, and then he acquires the capability to know or to perform certain activity or develop certain attitude. So from these two definitions, we can now come to that there have been different viewpoints put forth to understand how people learn. And people have been trying to understand this learning for over 2000 years, and the history goes back to Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. And when we said these were posed with the question, is truth or knowledge to be found within, or is truth and knowledge is what we gain through senses? That means whatever exists outside, we try to gain that information through our 5 senses. Whether that leads to discovery of truth or knowledge, or discovery of truth or knowledge lies within the individual. And if I simply refer to Plato, Plato said knowledge and truth can be discovered through self-reflection. That means all ideas lie within the individual, and through self-reflection, when you reflect inside, you try to understand the knowledge which is within you. And Socrates developed a dialectic technique, a question-answer argumentative technique, which led to the discovery of truth and knowledge. Aristotle, he emphasized that use of senses is there to discover the knowledge and truth. And then there was a renaissance, and from 15th to 17th century, where the church became the major source of discovering the knowledge and truth. And then came Descartes, who said ideas lie within the individual. And Locke came and he built on the theory of Aristotle of empiricism, and he says child mind is like a empty tablet. That is, he gave the concept of tabula rasa and said whatever experiences you provide to the students or the child, that will shape the child. And then came Rousseau, who stressed that education should be shaped according to the child. So child-centered education concept came with Rousseau. And then came Kant, who said the awareness of knowledge begins with experience. And the serious efforts by the psychologists to explain how people learn began in 19th century. And the theories can be classified primarily into behavioral theories of learning and cognitive theories of learning. And then there was social learning theory, and now we have metacognition and constructivism. Metacognition and constructivism theories, they have direct link to cognitive theories, and the basis is cognitive theory. Now, what exactly the behavioral theories include, the effort started with Thorndike, who focused on trial and error learning. According to Thorndike, the learning is incremental. You do something and that may be wrong, then you attempt again, so trial and error, and ultimately you are adding some new knowledge to your knowledge repertoire. So when we talk in terms of the 19th century, the first effort was by Thorndike, and he said learning is incremental and people learn through trial and error. Then came classical conditioning by Pavlov. When the classical conditioning theory came, so according to Pavlov, you can associate the unconditioned stimuli with the conditioned stimuli, and you can generate unconditioned response on the basis of that. He carried out experiments on dogs, and where he tried to provide the food, along with the food he rang the bell, and then when the dog saw the food, the saliva would normally come, which is a unconditioned response to that. But when there was paired association between the ring and the food, then food was not provided, only the bell was rung and the saliva came out of the mouth of the dog. That means you could get the unconditioned response by presenting a conditioned stimuli along with the unconditioned stimuli. So he referred to this association between unconditioned stimuli and the conditioned response. Then came the theory of Skinner, which we refer to as Skinner reinforcement theory. This is known as operant conditioning. Because operant, why we said, it only referred to what is observable, the behavior which is observable. And all his theory was formed on the basis of if the response to any stimulus is reinforced. That means the connection between the stimulus and response will be strengthened. Just give you an example of this. Say, for example, you pose a question in the class and you get a response from your student. I would request the center to kindly mute the mic. Now, when you center,
नहीं हुए। ठीक है, आवाज सुनी नहीं सुनी तो कैमरे सामने बैठे रहो, मान देखते रहे बच्चा है सीधी वाला।
Your long-term memory, or you do the elaboration. Elaboration means whatever you earlier know, you try to relate that new information to what you already know. So you try to build connection between what you know and the new information, and you are able to transfer the new information to your long-term memory. The process of learning doesn't end here. When the information is required to be applied in a given situation, then you try to bring the information from your long-term memory to short-term memory, the working memory, and then you try to apply that to find a solution to the problem. So information processing theory laid focus on the role of the brain in the process of learning. Then came the schema. Schema means that you try to build the connection between the prior knowledge and the new knowledge, and you go on expanding the horizon of your. That's a concept. Now, when you talk in terms of, say, you are dealing with engines, you have the concept of engine. Now you know the types of engine, you try to relate those types of engine to the concept of engine. When you go to the parts of the engine, then you broaden the schema, and all these concepts get connected to each other. They are not stored in the mind as bits and pieces, but they are organized in the mind in a meaningful manner. So that is what is referred to as schema. Then came the theory of social learning. Social learning theory was given by Bandura, and he said learning also results from observing others. And people try to learn many things by imitating others. That was the focus of social learning. Now here, when we think in terms of a skill learning, somebody is doing the task, somebody is demonstrating the task, and we try to imitate that process. So skill learning also starts with imitating others. Likewise, when your seniors, they behave in a particular manner, you pick up the way how you need to interact with others, how you need to communicate with others. Even that is a part of your social learning theory. Then came the metacognition. Metacognition, when I refer to, just let me give you here, metacognition refers to people's ability to predict their own performance on various tasks and monitor their current levels of mastery and understanding. That means when you are able to understand how do you think, how do you learn, You are able to manage your own thinking and learning processes. That is referred to as metacognition. You are able to predict in which task you will be successful, in which task you will be unsuccessful, or what are your chances of attaining a mastery over a task. That is what is referred to as metacognition. And nowadays, the latest connotations which are attached to learning are the constructive theory or constructivism. And here it is based on the premise that individuals construct knowledge for themselves. There is no knowledge lying outside. Say, for example, when I am speaking, two of you who are sitting here, or the individuals who are sitting at different centers, they are viewing the same information in the frame of reference of their prior learning. And each one of us give a different meaning to new incoming information, and we attach different meaning to the same input which has been provided to us. And that's why it is said the more actively you involve the learner in the process of learning, the higher will be the learning. So these constructivisms or the constructivist theories, they put emphasis on the active role of the learner in the process of learning. And then we come to the conclusion that the learning, when we say the mind or the brain plays a very important role, and brain helps you in processing the new information, and we use different cognitive processes to process the information. Second important thing is that the prior learning of the individual plays important place in learning. If you have a prior learning and you are trying to relate the new information to the previously known facts, concepts, principles and theories, then meaningful learning will take place. Another important conclusion which we can draw on the basis of the theories is that socio-cultural context of an individual plays important role in learning, because different individuals belong to different socio-cultural contexts. And if you are able to create a meaningful association between the new learning and their context, because they'll be viewing in their own context the relevance of the new information, and the better the relationship between the two, higher will be the learning. So a teacher needs to undertake, takes into consideration the socio-cultural environment of the individual to facilitate learning. Fine. Another is your emotions also play role in learning. You don't only use your thought processes, but your feeling component is also affecting your learning process. Now we come to Guyne's classification of varieties of learning. Because in the beginning I said you are trying to acquire knowledge or skills or attitude. But Guyne has tried to classify the outcomes of learning into 5. He said the very first is the verbal information. The second one are the intellectual skills. The third are motor skills. Fourth is the attitude. And fifth is the cognitive strategies. Now let's try to find out what do we mean by verbal information. When I say verbal information, it refers to the factual information, the organized bodies of knowledge. Now when you say there are two types of engine, now this is a factual information. My name is Paramjeet, it's a factual information. There are two participants sitting in ETV studio is a factual information, right? Computer has 3 important components, the monitor, the CPU and the keyboard. This is a factual information, right? Or I'm wearing a sky blue sari. This is a factual information. The value of pi is equal to 22/7. is a factual information. The symbol of potassium is K. The symbol of chlorine is Cl2 is a factual information. And when we say, I know that there are two types of engine, there are 6 major parts of the engine, and this is a function of that. This is all a organized body of knowledge. So one is the verbal information, which is the outcome of learning. And every technical discipline has a huge body of factual information. When you say the machinery, the equipment, the tools, the rules, they are all factual information. Then here you can see, when you name a machinery, name an equipment, name a tool, name an object, name a person, name a event, and you are able to recall that information, because this kind of learning requires rote memorization. You don't require any understanding, but simple rote memorization of these things. If you have to know my name, if you repeat it 10 times, or you write somewhere, then see it twice, thrice, you remember the name of the instructor. Then here, bodies of knowledge simply means the large body of knowledge which is only integration or intercorrelated facts, concepts, principles and theories in a subject. The second learning outcome is the intellectual skills. Intellectual skills refer to the ways a person acquires for interacting with the environment through symbols. Now here there are multiple discrimination, concepts, rules and problem solving. The initial is multiple discrimination. We try to discriminate between symbols. Say for example, a small child, there is a B, there is D. The only difference between B and D is you have, yes, semicircle on the right hand side, or you have a semicircle on the left hand side. You try to discriminate between a square and a triangle. A figure shown to you, you can discriminate. You try to discriminate between the various tools, equipments and so on. This is discrimination. Then comes the concept learning, which may be the outcome. And every discipline again has a huge number of concepts involved in it. Can you give me an example of a concept from your discipline, ma'am? अगर concept की definition आपको clear है, you can give me an example of a concept. Yes? Or you can give me any example of a concept which you learn as a part of your discipline. Or anybody from the center would like to respond to. Can you give me one example of a concept from your discipline? Okay, no response coming through. Just have a look at. When I say concepts, concepts are category names which has certain essential attributes. I take an example of a chair here. All of you are occupying chairs. You can refer to that chair. Chair has 3 essential attributes. What are those 3 essential attributes? Okay, and what is important? Now here you have a seat to sit, support from beneath and support from back. These are the 3 important things. A chair can be of wood, chair can be of aluminium, chair can be of a metal, any other metal, chair can be of a plastic. The color of the chair is immaterial. It can be red, green, brown or yellow or so on, or a white. But if I remove the support from back and I remove the arms, what would you call it? Stool. So the category name changes. So there are number of concepts which you learn in your discipline, and these concepts has essential attributes. And if those essential attributes are not there, the category name changes. So here you can see from mechanical, fuel, engine, petrol, carburetor, piston, efficiency, effectiveness, joint, frontal area. All these are concepts. And here you can see from the computer science, language, stack, instructions, programming, virus, software, hard disk, networking, LAN, World Wide Web, all these are concepts. And here I have referred to hard disk and software. Take an example. Do you find any difference in these two concepts, hard disk and software? Hard disk can be shown, it is a tangible thing, but a software cannot be shown. It needs to be defined. So concepts can be either defined concepts or can be concrete concepts. So in every subject we learn concrete concepts or the defined concepts. Then comes the rule. The outcome of learning can be learning of rules or principles. Now again I would say rule. क्या होता है rule? Is rule something to do with concepts? और rule क्या होता है? Okay. Now when I say stress is directly proportional to strain, what is stress? Stress क्या है? Concept है, fact है, क्या है? Concept. Proportional is a concept, strain is a concept. So rule learning is evident, and it is nothing but connection or relationship between two or more than two concepts. So rule learning can be facilitated if a person understands the underlying concepts. Then comes problem solving. Problem solving is similar to rule or different than rule? बताइए. How would you differentiate between rule learning and problem solving learning? Different तो है, पर कैसे different है? Now when I say problem solving, it requires application of more than one rule to find solution to the problem. अगर simple rule को apply करके मैं कोई solution ले लेती हूँ, that is not problem solving. That is only comprehension. I have learned how to calculate the area of this room by multiplying length into breadth. But say for example, I have to find an area of a four-sided figure, and I have to apply a rule of rectangle and a triangle to find the area of four-sided figure. That becomes a problem solving where more than one rule are applicable. So intellectual skills are exhibited in terms of when a person is able to discriminate between various shapes, objects, person, tools, machinery, equipment, or the person is able to give explanation for the concepts, or he is able to give examples of different concepts. And rule learning is evident when a person is able to apply the rule in a given situation. Problem solving involves application of more than one rule to find solution to the problem. So the third category which is there is, चलो आगे चलते हैं. The third next category is the motor skills. Motor skills, now the name has been changed to psychomotor skills, because learning of a skill also involves some mental activity. If I have to learn driving a car, I must be familiar with the various parts of the car, the function of various parts of the car, the safety measures which I need to take into account. Then I must know the procedures. That means step-by-step procedure how to drive a car. And even I have to take the knowledge of the rules of traffic. I need to know the traffic rules, traffic symbols, so that I can drive the car smoothly and efficiently. And every learning of a skill passes through three phases. The first phase is the cognitive phase, that you try to acquire knowledge about that. The second is the associative phase, where somebody gives you adequate practice in driving a car. That is associative phase. Third phase is autonomous phase, where learning of a skill becomes a habit. You are able to drive a car without any guidance from the outside, and you are able to coordinate the various activities, and you don't have to give emphasis on one particular act. So they are learned capabilities that underlie performance, whose outcomes are reflected in rapidity, accuracy, smoothness of bodily movement. So when you are able to perform a job, then you are able to do it with rapidity, accuracy, smoothness, right? Then the fifth outcome of learning are cognitive strategies. Cognitive strategies means the internally organized skills that govern an individual's learning, remembering and thinking behavior. I just pick up one example. If you have to read through a book, how do you underline? You underline. You also underline. There are individuals who don't underline, but they write the main idea in the margin of the page. There is another individual who tries to take copious notes while he or she is reading a book. A person doesn't even make a mark on the book, but if you ask, he is able to give you the main ideas which are covered in the chapter. So people use different strategies to learn. So if you are able to monitor those strategies, how you learn, these refer to cognitive strategies. Or how you think, how you process a piece of information, if you are able to think about that, it is referred to as cognitive strategies. Somebody can ask you how you recall the information. Because if a student comes to you, ma'am, here is a differential equation. Can you please help me to solve this? One teacher says, give me the problem, I help you out to solve it. Another say, leave the book and leave the problem. Come to me tomorrow and I'll solve the problem. Or another person says, just give me the book. He just sifts through the pages and he's able to recall the information which has been organized nutshell. You can say that the outcomes of learning can be in terms of verbal information, in terms of intellectual skills, in terms of motor skills, in terms of attitudes and cognitive strategies. I have left attitude. अब देखिए, even when Dr. Punya was talking to you in the morning, he was referring to that our students have become too materialist. Now this is value. Attitudes and values, they come under affective domain. And when students are here, we are not only trying to bring a change in their knowledge and skill, but we would also like to bring change in their behavior in terms of their attitudes and values. We want that a student should be able to attend the classes regularly. He should be punctual for the class. He should be able to submit assignments on time. He should be able to take care of the equipment and machinery which is available in the labs and the workshops. He should be able to cooperate with others. All these, this is part of your attitudes and values. And if I say I have a favorable attitude towards lab work, that means I am, yes, I'll react favorably to the lab work. I'll be punctual, I'll be regular, I'll be committed to completing my lab work. But if somebody has unfavorable attitude towards lab work, the person would like to miss the classes, practical classes, or he'll not be sincere in performing the experiment. He may be the observer when the work is assigned in groups, or a person who has not having the proper attitude towards education may come to the college just to pass the time, sits through the classes, goes back. But a student who is having a favorable attitude, he will put in his 100% to learn something from the various experiences which are provided to him. So attitude affects your choices towards objects, persons, and events, right? So outcomes of learning can be in terms of these 5. Now we come to, if there is learning which is relatively permanent change in behavior as a result of experience, and there are different explanations put forth how people learn, and these are different learning outcomes. These learning outcomes would require different conditions which can facilitate learning on the part of the student. So just give you one example, that if I have to learn the definitions of force, mass, acceleration, velocity, and so on, I simply memorize them, rote memorize. You give me in writing, you give me self-learning material, or you provide information about these, I'll be able to rote memorize these. But if I have to learn a skill, this piece of information will not help. Cognitive requirement is there, but unless and until you demonstrate and I am given adequate practice, I'll not be able to acquire the skill. So different conditions are required to facilitate learning of different varieties of learning. So there emerge certain common principles of learning and instruction, which I am now going to discuss with you. So the very first principle is ensuring sequencing of content matter. As a teacher, I am given a syllabus and I am asked to go to the class and start teaching. Can I teach the syllabus as the topics are enlisted in that, or do you try to analyze, is the sequencing of the topics appropriate? Because I still remember there's a lot of controversy whether electricity is taught first or magnetism to be taught first. When I come to a particular topic, I took an example of engine. I said engine would include the concept of engine, the parts of engine, the function of the various parts of engine, the working principle of engine, the procedure to operate engine, or the working procedure operation of engine. Can I teach the types of engine before I clarify the concept of engine to the student? No. But how many times do you try to analyze the syllabus and find out whether the topics as they are enlisted in the syllabus, are they properly sequenced? Nahi karte ho. So what is needed is you need to first do the syllabus analysis, sequence. I take an example of mathematics. I take a very simple example. You teach addition, you teach subtraction, you teach multiplication, and you teach division. When you have to teach the child addition, subtraction, multiplication and division. My question to you is, why these topics are taught in this sequence and why can't we teach multiplication before addition and subtraction? क्या मैं मल्टीप्लिकेशन पहले सिखाती हूँ या पहले एडिशन सब्ट्रैक्शन सिखाती हूँ? क्यों? क्वेश्चन. Okay, now the answer is likewise. If you say addition, simple procedure. Addition forms the basis of subtraction because subtraction is the reverse of addition. And multiplication is, you have rightly said, is repetitive addition. And in case of division, you apply the all three other aspects. Okay? So there is a hierarchy built in within the subject and we must adhere to that hierarchy, logical sequencing of the content matter. Another is, within a topic, you need to sequence the various parts of that topic. And that is what is referred to as carry out task analysis. That means break down the topic into its constituent parts and then sequence the parts in the order of priority in learning. Now I just take an example of the concept called force. If I have to learn the concept of force, ਇਹ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਉਡਾਤਾ ਜੀ? परमजीत कितने गए सेंटर्स? ਇੱਥੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ ਨਾ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਸਕਰੀਨ ਬੰਦ ਕਰੋ ਨਾ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਅਪਸੈਟ ਕਰ ਦਿਆ. When you take an example of a force, the underlying concepts a learner must know is that of mass and acceleration. Without having the understanding of mass and acceleration, I cannot understand the concept of force. For understanding the concept of acceleration, I need to understand the concept of velocity and time. And understand the concept of velocity, I require to understand speed and time, or displacement and time. And if I start building on the blocks, I can make the concept of force clear to my students. If they have displacement and time concept, understanding of velocity is facilitated. Having a concept of velocity, the concept of acceleration gets facilitated. And if a person understands the concept of mass and acceleration, the learning of force gets facilitated. So you need to break down the topic, and this we are going to have a next session which will be focusing only on task analysis. So the very first principle of learning and instruction is the teacher needs to carry out the task analysis and then sequence the parts of the topic so that learning can be facilitated. The second principle is you must know the end goal which you want to reach. Now I take an example of Alice in the Wonderland. You might have heard that story. And Alice was lost in the jungle and she met a cat. She asked, "Which way should I take?" The cat asked Alice, "Where you want to go?" Alice says, "I don't know." The cat replies, "Any path would do. You can take A route, B route, C route or D route. You will reach somewhere. But if I know that I want to reach to sector 17 in Chandigarh from Nitter 26, I can select a path which is efficient, which will not be crowded, and I can easily go to sector 17. I can also tell roughly how much time it would take. So for a teacher, if he knows what a student will be able to do at the end of unit of instruction, then the teacher can select the appropriate method or the media. So these are intended learning outcomes. That means what you expect your student to do at the end of unit of instruction. I am teaching definitions. Do I expect that student will be able to define? Do I expect from my student that he'll be able to explain the concept? Do I expect my student to apply the learned rule in a day-to-day life and the world of work? Do I expect my student to evaluate the adequacy of a given engine for a given sports utility vehicle? So what is it that I expect my student to do? Because the selection of method and media will be dependent upon your instructional objectives. So it is very important, if you know the objective, you can arouse the needed expectancy level among your students. They can be the motivated to learn a particular. Now if a student knows that there is higher order differential equation, and by learning this particular method the student will be able to solve the higher order differential equation, then student is motivated to learn that. So always try to specify instructional objectives in the beginning. We have full session on what are instructional objectives, how to write down instructional objectives. But one thing you must assure is that whatever instructional objective you write, it has to be specific. It should start with an action verb. You should use define, state, analyze, label, compare, differentiate, apply, and maybe create, evaluate, design, modify. These are action verbs which can be used to write intended learning outcome. A stands for agreed upon. The teacher and the student must agree to that this will be the outcome of learning. M stands for measurable. Measurable means what is observable is measurable. When a student defines either orally or in written form, that can be measured against the standard definition of that. Okay? Then comes R. R stands for realistic. Your objectives need to be realistic, which are achievable. T stands for time frame. That means within a due course of time, you should be able to achieve that objective. Then your objective falls in three domains: cognitive domain, and then psychomotor domain and affective. I'll be dealing with these in detail when I go to the third session. Then comes the important principle: arouse and sustain motivation. May I know from the audience, how would you like to explain this phenomena called motivation? What is motivation? Yes, any reply from the center? Can I request JCDM? Any person would like to give me a reply to this? What do we understand by motivation? Anyone from Northern Institute of Engineering? जी, मोटिवेशन क्या होती है? जी मैम, बोलिए प्लीज. और एनीबडी? भाई की गल है, ऑडियो किथे गई? Okay, anybody from ETV studio would like to reply? Okay, I give you one simple explanation. It is willingness to expend effort to achieve an individual goal. Now, say for example, I am in a marketplace and I am looking for a restaurant. Can you understand the motive behind looking for a restaurant? Can you tell me why I am looking for a restaurant? अगर मैं मार्केट में हूँ, रेस्टोरेंट ढूंढ रही हूँ, क्या पर्पस हो सकता है? To take food, that means you want to satisfy hunger. So, motivation, this word has been driven from movier, a Latin verb which means motives and action. and your motive is to satisfy hunger, that's why you are looking for a restaurant. Or you are sitting in a class. Why are you sitting in a class? May I ask you, ma'am? To learn something. Why are you here, sir? To learn something. बड़ा positive response मिल रहा है. लेकिन I have come across responses like, I am here because I want to go around Chandigarh. So the motive is to attend a program in Nitter, but also go around the city and look. So that may be the motive. So when we say the students who are sitting in the class, they also are here with different motives in mind. Somebody, because the parents have forced him to sit in the class, or somebody is there who just want to pass time sitting here. Somebody is here just to earn a degree. Somebody is here to just learn about the subject and acquire in-depth knowledge of that subject. So a teacher needs to arouse and sustain motivation of the students, and that you can do. There are definite 4 strategies. Gaining attention. When you enter the class, you stand still, don't speak for a fraction of a second. Automatically the student pay attention to. You give a verbal cue, good morning students, the student pay attention to you. You bring a change to the environment of the class, you switch on a fan which is not working, it starts working, and students pay attention to that. Initial strategy of gaining the attention. You take a working model to the class which you are going to use in the beginning of the class, that arouses the motivation. You show a video clip where you show there is lot of waste material lying or dumping ground, you show, and then you show what kind of menace it creates for the nearby people. And then you bring the students, okay, we are going to discuss the strategies for recycling the waste today, and you arouse the motivation among your student. Or when you gain attention, when you're writing on the board, sustain kaise karte ho aap, you underline the important words on the board. You write certain words in caps on the board, you are able to sustain the attention. Or when you say, this part is very important from the examination point of view, or this is a rule which is applicable in various industries, you are trying to gain attention of your students and sustain the same. Then build the relevance of what you are teaching. If you tell the students what they'll be able to do, or you take examples from day-to-day life, you take examples from the industry, you tell the future worth of the learning to the student, you are actually building the relevance of what they are learning. You relate the topic to other topics, you relate the topic to the discipline, you relate the topic to other disciplines where it will be applied, you are actually building the relevance. Then build the confidence. How we build the confidence? By providing successful experiences to our students. When I say providing successful experience, you pose a very simple question, the student answers that. Next question is of little higher difficulty. The next one is of still higher difficulty. Or you give a problem which is very simple. The next one is little difficult. The next one is little higher difficulty level. So you are providing successful experiences. Thereby also you are building the confidence. You give practice to your students. The subjects which contain numerical, the subjects which have chemical equations or chemical reactions, then derivations. You give lot of practice to your students to build or boost their confidence. You reward the person, you appreciate the person, you praise the person. This is for building the confidence of the individual. Generate satisfaction. If I go to the class, I say I'm going to cover these 4 things. By the end of the class, I only cover 2 things. Would my student be satisfied? No. And they'll say, every time she comes, she says she's going to cover these many things, and 50% of that she does, and 50% she leaves. So generating satisfaction means if you're going with that certain objectives, those objectives must be achieved at the end of class. rules for everyone. You cannot have different rules for different individuals. Dipti comes to the class 10 minutes late. I ask her to enter into the class. Now, Pradeep comes to the class 11 minutes late. I say, get out of the class. Now, what are my rules? Is Dipti very close to me? Dipti I like, I allow her to sit in the class. Pradeep I don't like, so I ask him to get out of the class. I cannot have different rules. You are coming with an assignment you want to submit. You are late by 1 day. I don't allow you. She comes with an assignment 2 days late. I allow and keep that assignment. I'm having different rules for different students. I cannot have that. So if one student gives a good answer, I appreciate. Another student gives the right answer, I say sit down. So there is no appreciation given to. So you create dissatisfaction among your students. When you become biased, you become prejudiced, you create dissatisfaction. So avoid biases, prejudices, have same rules, have same set of expectations from different students, and have same level of confidence boosted among your students. Then you'll be able to arouse and sustain motivation level of your students. Another very important principle that emerges: no two individuals are alike. आपके स्टूडेंट सेम होते हैं जो क्लास में बैठे होते हैं कि वैरायटी होती है. There is lot of heterogeneity that ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਉਡਾ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਭਾਈ ਪਰਮਜੀਤ नहीं please ਤੁਸੀਂ when we say students, they differ with respect to their cognitive characteristics. We all as teacher face a problem. There is 10% of the students who are, say, above average. Most of the students, about 68%, they fall in the category of average intelligence, and the next 16%, they are below average. This is normal probability curve. 16 below average, 68% average, and 16% fall, that is above average. This is a normally distributed curve. Hardly in classes we come across this kind of a distribution. There may be skewed distribution also, positively or negatively, right? In IITs, you have people who are on the higher side more, and in polytechnics, maybe we have students who fall on the lower edge of the curve. So what is the distribution in my class? How many students are above average? How many are average? How many are below average? I need to have some understanding of their intelligence, because when I pose a question, a higher difficulty level question can be posed to the student who is highly intelligent. A mediocre or medium difficulty question to a person who is of average intelligence, and a simple question to the one who is below average. I can expect a quick performance from highly intelligent person, but a slow response from the person who is below average. So even the time would vary, even the nature of question would vary, the nature of task can vary. I can give a complex question to you as you are above average, but I cannot give the same question to a person who is below average. I can break down the question into 4 parts which are more simple. So part by part, I take that student to the complex question. Cognitive also takes care of the aptitude. Aptitude is the innate potential to excel in a particular field with training. People have musical aptitude, mechanical aptitude, literary aptitude, clerical speed, accuracy aptitude, and so on. So if we know my student possesses the numerical aptitude, that means he has the potential to excel in the field of mathematics with some training. So I can expect a better and higher performance from that individual. But the person who doesn't possess the aptitude, he will take more time to reach that level, right? If given adequate time, you can bring the student to a particular level, but you cannot expect within the same time the same level of performance. Students differ with respect to their learning styles. Some learn when they listen to others, some learn when they see the things, some learn when they are involved in doing the activity. So there are auditory learners, there are visual learners, there are kinesthetic learners. So a teacher must have the understanding who are the people who are auditory learners, who are the people who are visual learners, who are the people who learn by doing. And I need to create all those types of experiences in my class. When I'm speaking, auditory. When I'm using a PowerPoint presentation, I'm using a model, I'm using a diagram, I'm showing an animation. I bring the real machinery and equipment to the class. I'm catering to the needs of visual learner. When I give the task to the student, I'm catering to the need of kinesthetic learner. I'm involving that person actively in learning that. I allow them to manipulate the machinery and equipment. Second is there are physical differences also. Physical in terms of age, height, weight, color, they vary. Maybe gender also there are variations. Boys and girls are there, physical differences. How do a teacher take care of this? So for example, I won't say, yes, there is something which is lying on a height. I want a student to pick up that. And I call the shortest person in the class to do that act. You will laugh at me, as you are laughing now. I could pick up a student who is taller, having a height. You can easily pick up the things. Height matter कर गई, वहां पे मैटर कर रहा है, अदरवाइज शायद नहीं मैटर करे. किसी के कलर और स्किन का कलर, हेयर का कलर इतना मैटर नहीं करता है. बट दीज थिंग्स, why I should know wherever that physical strength is to be used, I must take it into account. And I must make sure that I'm not biased towards gender, girls and boys. कहते हैं कई बार आप कहाँ आ गई सिविल इंजीनियरिंग में, आप क्या करोगी सिविल इंजीनियरिंग पढ़ के, इट्स नॉट वुमेन्स फील्ड. ऐसे कमेंट्स मुझे नहीं देने. आई मस्ट अंडरस्टैंड social context. Students are coming to me from rural area to from urban area. Their context varies. Their language, the mother tongue varies. Social, right? Environment varies. Another is some people are introvert, some people are extrovert. Some people are extrovert means the person who is very outgoing, outspoken, enjoys group activities. Introvert is a person who is inward looking. The person is very self-centric. He carries out work alone. He doesn't enjoy working in groups. And he works for hours together. He is not bothered. But a person who is extrovert cannot stick to one kind of job for a longer period of time. वो एक ग्रुप से दूसरे ग्रुप में, एक एक्टिविटी से दूसरे एक्टिविटी में. So if I know my students are introvert, he's an introvert or she's introvert, I give individual tasks, but I need to open up that individual so that he or she also works in team. So I must have certain activities which are amenable to introverts, certain activities which are more favored by extrovert, but I do have the proper mix of these activities. Okay? Then emotional. You might have seen that your student, some are anxiety prone. आपने आज कहा, tomorrow there will be a test and a panic is created in the class. वो कहते हल्ला शुरू हो गया because sir हम कैसे पढ़ेंगे? How do we study the whole syllabus? We'll not be able to do our best, and वो anxiety level जो आता जाता है वो भी भूल गए. A minimum level of anxiety is desirable, but a high level of anxiety is always disastrous for good performance. So a teacher must know who are the students who are anxiety prone, who are not anxiety, low on anxiety. So you must try to give prior information to the students with respect to test, quizzes, unnecessarily anxiety aroused nahi kariye. Another thing, emotional. Some students are emotionally intelligent, some are not. When I say emotionally intelligent, they are able to understand their own feelings, monitor their own feelings, They are able to understand others and regulate. But those who are not, and nowadays at workplace, emotional intelligence is given due emphasis. And people who are emotionally intelligent, they are more satisfied, they are able to maintain a balance between the work and life. So we need to cultivate that kind of emotional intelligence among our students. So try to find out who are not, and then those need to be proper training. So try to understand the differences which exist, and how can you cater to differences, adopting multiple strategies, multiple methods, and multiple media and multiple evaluation techniques. That is the answer to catering to individual differences. Now here you can see these are some of the points which can be used to cater to individual differences. So multiple instructional method, variety of activities, some task independent, some task in group. Then you can use different grouping. One intelligent student, one average intelligent student, and one below average intelligence. So groupings can be done. Examples from different contexts can be given. Some from rural, some from urban, some from national, some from international. If you have international students also, questions of varying difficulty can be asked, and different tasks according to their abilities, right? And then individual guidance can be provided if you really understand your students. Then here, another answer is stimulus variation. Even this is used for sustaining the motivational level of the students and attention. You can attend to one kind of stimulus for 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, your attention goes down. So if I am speaking now, maybe after 20 minutes, I shift to a task where you are actively involved, and then you are able to, I am able to, as teachers, sustain the motivational level. You will be interested. I am speaking for 10 minutes. For the next 5 minutes, I am showing a video clip. Stimulus variation. So bring that stimulus variation to sustain the motivational level, sustain the interest level. Provide adequate practice to your student. And this is important, especially for skill learning, for application of rules, where you give them problem solving activity. Then it is very important to develop the higher level ability of problem solving, where ability to analyze, ability to evaluate, ability to create is needed. Give adequate practice to your students so that they can acquire the skill. And next one is use examples and non-example. अब देखिए मैंने आपको कुछ figures दिए हैं. The very first one is equilateral triangle. The second one is, the third one is again a right angle. Another one, green one, is right angle triangle, and the below it obtuse. So what is happening? The three right angle triangles are examples of right angle. The other two figures are non-examples of right angle. So when I am trying to clarify the concept of triangle, I must give them what is it that is known as right angle, what is it that is not known as right angle. So a person will acquire the ability to differentiate, and he'll be able to clarify the concept. He'll be able to give examples of that. Now here, another is the constructivist approach said that each individual construct meaning. We construct knowledge for ourselves. So what a teacher should do, allow or give the opportunity to students to challenge their own thinking. Now earlier the concept was earth is flat. Then somebody said earth is round. Earth is round. Again challenge it. Is the earth round? Ask the student to pose this question to himself and find answer to that. If this you give a problem, ask the student to challenge his own thinking. He has given a right answer. He has given an answer. Ask him, how do you say this can happen? Why do you think that will be the outcome of this situation? Challenge one's own thinking. Give them the opportunity to reflect back. Allow them to you performed. Now think over whether you performed well or not. The strategy used, whether it worked or not. Develop thinking processes. When a person is solving the problem, ask him how did he arrive at a solution to the problem. So the person is made to think about what he thought, how he arrived at the right solution. So the person pays attention to the thought processes which have been there to find a solution to the problem. Link new knowledge to already known. So whatever is the prior knowledge, you try to bring that prior knowledge to the working memory and then allow the person to build connection with already known knowledge. So that's how the person is encouraged to construct meaning of incoming information. ये दोबारा क्यों repeat हो गया? Then another principle, a teacher needs to establish rapport with the student. So try to open up the channels of communication, both formal and informal channels of communication, and this will help you in clarifying the doubts of the students. You'll give an opportunity to students to pose questions, express their views, express their apprehensions, and you will give them opportunity to know others. And then they'll be encouraged for creativity. When there is free communication between the teacher and the student, then students are free to give any answer to the question posed. And if these are open-ended questions, there is no one right answer to the question. I say, what could be the changes which you can brought into this ball pen? There can be multiple answers. Somebody can say, I can change the color, I can change the ink, I can change the design, I can change that it works for lifetime. You can think of. So there can be 101 answers. So creativity can be encouraged. So if you give problem solving, you give no one right answer problems to your students, you are actually encouraging the creativity among your students. Then encourage, it will help in encouraging the participation in activities and decision making. Ensure fair and objective evaluation. Another is that if you really want to generate satisfaction, it is for the teacher to select relevant techniques of evaluation. Now when we say skill learning, operating a lathe, can I assess this by giving a written test to my student? No. What is needed? A performance test is required. So many of our institutions, they need to think that if I am going for evaluation, that has to be first the relevant, appropriate technique of evaluation. Secondly, I as teacher must remain objective and transparent. My student must know the criteria on which he or she is being assessed. If he knows the criteria beforehand, the student can prepare himself for that kind of evaluation. Then provide feedback. This is important. You must provide knowledge of results to the student, whether he is right, he is wrong. At the same time, when you are providing the feedback, this feedback will be task related. You cannot make any journalized comment. But teacher क्या करते हैं? तू तो किसी काबिल नहीं है. एक आंसर नहीं कह रहा मैंने क्वेश्चन, तो टीचर कह रहा है तू किसी काबिल नहीं है. That means I cannot do anything in my life. You are actually hurting my self-esteem. And you can ruin my whole life by making this comment. A teacher expectation from the student plays very important role in learning. If you expect from a child that he'll be able to perform a high level and show high level of performance, then student tries to come up to your expectation. So always restrict yourself to task related feedback. Then it has to be very specific. You cannot say बहुत अच्छा था. Tell him what was good, what was bad, what was right, what was wrong, right? Imitate. आज आपने मुझे क्लास में आंसर दिया है, मैं 6 महीने के बाद आपको याद आ गया, मुझे बाहर मिले आप, वो उस दिन आपने क्लास में बहुत अच्छा आंसर दिया था. ना तो स्टूडेंट को क्वेश्चन याद है, ना आंसर याद है. Now you have not been able to strengthen the desired behavior. So whenever you got a right reply, appreciate that right reply there and then in the class. That will have positive effect. Objective. कोई जो मैं आपको पहले कह रही थी मुझे अच्छी लगती है, इसको तो मैं बहुत शाबाशी देती हूँ. प्रदीप अच्छा नहीं लगता, उसने अच्छा आंसर दिया, उसको कहा बैठ जाओ. No, it has to be very objective, accurate. आप जो feedback दे रहे हैं, that has to be correct, and it should be one you can add is corrective. Always tell the students how to improve upon their performance, how to improve upon the answer which is wrong. So always try to give task related, specific, immediate, objective, accurate and corrective feedback to your students. That will work. Provide reinforcement. ये अपना जो स्किनर reinforcement theory से निकला है, that you must try to use rewards, appreciation, praise, token rewards for strengthening the behavior which is desired. अब देखिए बच्चा क्लास में आया टाइम पे, you are there. Normally क्या होता है, the teacher who comes to the class, वो उसको लेक्चर देता है कि इतने लोग आए नहीं है, उनको टाइम पे आना चाहिए, rather than appreciating the effort of the person who is there in time. मीटिंग में भी ऐसा ही होता है. The person who are there, they have to listen to जो नहीं आए उनके बारे में सब नेगेटिव चीजें हमें सुननी पड़ती हैं, and we have to wait for the people who have not come on time. So reinforcement का मतलब है जैसे ही करेक्ट आंसर आया उसको आपने अप्रिशिएट किया, प्रेज किया. अगर गलत आंसर आ गया तो यू ट्राई टू सिंप्लीफाई द क्वेश्चन टू enable the student to give the right answer. अब इसमें जब reinforcement की बात करते हैं, there are schedules of reinforcement. एक होता है fixed interval schedule. हर 5 मिनट के बाद जो मुझे राइट आंसर मिल रहा है उसको मैं अप्रिशिएट करूँ. हर आंसर को करूंगी तो वो बोलेंगे ये तो इसका तकिया कलामी है, हर आंसर पे ठीक आता तो बोलती है वेरी गुड, फिर द वेरी गुड लूजेस द मीनिंग. So I try to use different reinforcers, but I also give reinforcement at fixed interval. 5 मिनट पे, 10 मिनट पे, 15 मिनट पे मैं उसको reinforce करती हूँ. वेरिएबल इंटरव्यू शेड्यूल का मतलब है मेरी मर्जी है, 2 मिनट पे किया, फिर 6 मिनट पे किया, फिर 10 मिनट पे किया, फिर मैं भी 15 मिनट पे किया, फिर 17 मिनट पे किया, फिर 19 पे किया. सो आई चेंज द फिक्स्ड रेशियो शेड्यूल का मतलब है जब करेक्ट आंसर मिलेगा दूसरा तो मैं रीइंफोर्स करूंगी, चौथा फिर करूंगी, छठा फिर करूंगी, आठवां फिर करूंगी. वेरिएबल रेशियो शेड्यूल का मतलब है आप आंसर तो करेक्ट देते जा रहे हो, हर आंसर को नहीं करूंगी, मेरी मर्जी है, दूसरे पे कर दूं, छठे पे कर दूं, 11वें पे कर दूं, ऐसे बदल बदल के. सो दैट इज वेरिएबल रेशियो शेड्यूल. एंड अनदर थिंग यू मस्ट टेक इनटू अकाउंट, each individual value certain things. As a student, maybe मुझे पैसा बहुत है, मेरे पास है पैसा बहुत, I look for appreciation, praise, but there's another student who would like to have token rewards. अब देखिए आप बच्चा फर्स्ट रैंक किया क्लास में, आपने एनुअल डे पे आप उसको अप्रिशिएट कर रहे हो, एंड सम टाइम इट इज सेड पैसे क्यों देने हैं, बट किसी के लिए वो पैसा भी बहुत वैल्यूएबल हो सकता है. सो यू शुड यूज दिस काइंड ऑफ reinforcers at different. बंद करो, बंद करो. So you should use. I'm sorry for this inconvenience cause. उन्होंने तो नहीं किया, तुसी कुछ किया. So different reinforcement are to be used by the teachers. So friends, in nutshell, I would say these are some of the principles which can actually make learning and instruction effective, and starting with that sequencing of content matter. So always try to sequence the content. Logical sequencing is one aspect, but simple to complex, easy to difficult, known to unknown, these are psychological principles which must be taken into account. Then the teacher must try to specify what a student will be able to learn at the end of unit of instruction, that is class, what he'll be able to do so as to arouse the expectancy level, sustain motivation, that means gain attention, build relevance, build confidence, and generate satisfaction. Then you must have stimulus variation, variety of methods, variety of media, variety of activities to cater to individual differences which are present in the class, and then make generous use of examples and non-examples so that a student learn, then he is able to generalize, then he is able to transfer the learning from one situation to another. And in addition to that, provide adequate practice where skill learning is there, derivations are there, equations are there, reactions are there, problem solving is there. So provide adequate practice to your students. Allow them to actively be involved in the process of learning and instruction, and allow them to reflect, allow them to challenge their own thinking, allow them to share their views, and allow them to, yes, monitor their own progress. Then ensure formal and informal communication. And this is another, provide non-threatening and conducive environment. So teacher must be lovable, accessible, friendly with the students so that they can share everything and anything with the teacher. And the more they open up in the class, the better will be the learning. Okay? And then ensure fair and objective evaluation, and provide knowledge of result to your student, and provide rewards, appreciation, and praise to promote or facilitate learning. So friends, thank you very much for patient listening. Now I request the centers to come out with any question if they have in mind. Over to JCDM. JCDM College. Yes, ma'am. Is there any question?
हेलो
जी
मैम मैं ये पूछना चाह रहा था
जी
कि sometime is it good to force the students to come up on the stage and to speak something, like we talked about building confidence in students.
अच्छा ऐसा है, फोर्स क्यों कह रहे हैं आप? ये मैं बोलूंगी दिस इज एनफोर्समेंट ऑफ द रूल्स, राइट? आपने रूल बना लिया कि एवरी स्टूडेंट विल पार्टिसिपेट इन द एंड विल कम टू द स्टेज. अब दिस इंफॉर्मेशन शुड बी गिवन टू द स्टूडेंट बिफोर हैंड. So if you have given adequate time to the student to prepare himself to come to the stage, then I'll not say this is forcing. But yes, initial hesitation, the students who are introvert, they may be very shy to come to the stage. So maybe I don't make that person as the first speaker. So I allow an extrovert to come to the stage and then give 2-3 more students, then that person gets motivated to come to the stage. So I, as a teacher, ensure proper preparation by providing the needed guidance and support to that student who is shy, and then encouraging him to come to the stage. छोटा सा भी कुछ ठीक किया है तो मैं उसको reinforce कर दूंगी, reward कर दूंगी, appreciate कर दूंगी, so that next time he takes a chance to come to the stage. तो ये रूल है.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
हाँ
I would
जी.
like to say something, ma'am.
जी, please.
This session was very important from the point of view of teaching, and we learned about setting up our objectives, planning the syllabus, and how to keep motivating the students and creating confidence in them. And we also learn about various kind of learnings and techniques, that how can we involve the students in learning. And ma'am, your way of teaching is very expressive, and I thank you very much on the behalf of JCDM College of Engineering, ma'am.
Thank you very much. May I know your name, sir?
My name is Gurpreet Singh.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gurpreet, for the words of appreciation. Any other member had any other questions? Do we have any other question?
No, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Over to Nadran India. क्या हुआ? Nadran India College of Engineering, क्या Institute of Engineering? Yes. Can I have question from Nadran India Institute, India Engineering College?
Question. You were explaining something in this slide related to triangles. So if you could please.
Ma'am, please be slow and repeat your question.
Okay.
Ma'am, हाँ जी बोलिए.
The question is that there was a slide on the obtuse triangle, right triangle. If you
Yeah.
could explain that concept once again.
Yeah, sure. That was. ओहो अब किथे दिता सी जी कॉन्सेप्ट है ना. ये थी मैम. हाँ जी मैम, आर यू एबल टू सी दिस? Yeah. So here there are three figures which are right angle triangle. Another was approximating the equilateral triangle. So what I was making a point was that when you are giving examples, also try to give non-example. So equilateral triangle is a non-example of right angle triangle, or right angle triangle is a non-example of equilateral triangle. So when you are giving example of certain concept, also try to give non-examples of that concept. So person would have very clearly know the difference between equilateral triangle and a right angle triangle, and then he'll be able to give more examples, or pick up examples of the same concept. जी on कर दो इन्होंने. जी ma'am, I'm not getting your audio. Ma'am, no audio is there. Audio is not there. Just a minute. Check the audio. हाँ जी ma'am.
Now can you hear me?
हाँ, now I'm getting ma'am.
Okay. I was saying that thanks for the great piece of information you gave us through this teaching program.
Ma'am, repeat. Not getting your audio again. मैम आप ऐसे करो, आपका जो स्पीकर है, स्पीकर और जो माइक है वो दोनों पास हैं, तो स्पीकर का डिस्कनेक्ट कर दीजिए स्पीकर को. मैम स्लोली बोलो, स्लोली. हाँ जी बोलिए. Not getting.
Thanks for the great session.
आपकी आवाज तो आ रही है मुझे. जी
Thanks for the great session. We'll be hoping to get a lot of information from your side.
सर नहीं समझ आ रही, आपकी आवाज नहीं समझ आ रही.
Understanding that. Thanks for the this session. There is a lot of information from the.
Next session will be at 2 o'clock. आप कुछ सवाल क्या पूछना चाह रहे हो?
I was telling that. Thanks for this session. We are getting a lot of information from your side. That we people telling about by the YouTube. I was telling that. Thanks for the session.
आप एक स्पीकिंग. सर ऐसे करो, आप नंबर लो मेरा, मेरे को मोबाइल पे मैसेज कर दो. आई विल आंसर दैट क्वेश्चन. हाँ जी, हेलो.
Yes, we are getting thankful for this wonderful session, and all the faculties here are quite appreciated by your lectures. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much, sir, for the appreciation. And really, at 2 o'clock, I would request that you can send the questions. Have my email. This is pk_tulsi@yahoo.com. So if you have questions, you can send those questions through email. I'll try to answer tomorrow when I have a session again in the program.
Okay, ma'am.
Thank you very much. So do we have Bikaner also with us or Bilaspur? Only 2 institutions are there. Delhi ka ho gaya. May I know, ma'am, is there any question from your side? Okay, College of Engineering, Bikaner, do you have any question? No. So thank you very much. So we break for lunch, reassemble at 2 o'clock for the next session. So 3 institutions are connected for a चौथा नहीं होया Bilaspur. Okay. So friends, thank you very much. I hope I could make something understand. कुछ समझ आया? कोई सवाल है? So thank you very much. Have your lunch and join us at 2 o'clock. Thank you, Ji.